Hey everyone, I'm so sorry I can't be there today. I will be back tomorrow. For this week, we are working on 1.4. I want you to go ahead and start with this warm-up. You are naming 4 different angles, okay? And you can name them different ways. So go ahead and pause the video while you do that. Okay, so remember you can name an angle different ways. So just because I do it one way does not mean you have to do it that way. So the first thing I'm going to do is talk about this angle right here, my yellow angle. Okay, so the first thing I see that it's touching this side. So I'm going to do B, the corner is A, and then it's touching D. Okay, so that is angle B, A, D. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to my next angle. If we're talking about this angle, first it's touching this side again, then it's going to the corner, and then it's going over here to C. So that one was B, A, C. Oh, and don't forget your angle in front of that. Okay, next up, I'm going to go this side, and then this side. So remember, you need 3 letters. I started with C. My corner was A. You always need that vertex in the middle, and then E. And then my last one, this angle, I'm going to start with my D on this one, go to A, and then go to E. So D, A, E. Okay, now your first and last letters could be flipped on any of these. Okay, so let's go ahead and scroll down to our notes. Okay, goal for today, let's get definitely through the vocab and get through maybe through the first part of the page. Next page. Okay, so our first word is going to be adjacent. So when you think of adjacent, I want you to think of next to. If you are sitting next to someone, you are sitting adjacent to them. Okay, and this is when we have angles. Angles are adjacent when they have a common vertex and side. Okay, so if you notice these 2 angles over here, if I do them different colors, I have my blue angle, and then I'm going to do a yellow angle. Okay, notice how on that one side the blue and the yellow touched both, all the way through to that common vertex. Okay, that is adjacent. They are touching. They're next to. Okay. Our next word is a linear pair. Now in here we see a special word, and it's called line, and that means that it's going to form a line. Form a line, and we'll come back to that in a second. Our definition is that it is a pair of angles whose non-common sides are opposite rays. Okay, so they are going to be adjacent. Okay, and it actually turns out that all linear pairs are also going to be supplementary, and we will talk about that in just a little bit. Okay, but I want to go back to forming a line. So a linear pair or a linear pair, okay, are 2 angles that have an opposite ray, or so it forms a line. Then there's going to be another angle that kind of cuts between it. Okay, and there's pictures off to the side of 2 different examples, so they have to be touching. Okay, adjacent angles also have to be touching. Okay. Our next word is complementary. These do not have to touch. Okay, and these are two angles whose measures have a sum of 90 degrees. Okay, now sum, remember, means adding. Okay, so they are going to add to equal 90. Okay, so in this case we have adjacent angles because they're touching, and they add to 90 because 30 plus 60 equals 90. You might also have a 45-degree angle not touching another 45-degree angle. Okay, now these are still complementary because they add to 90, but they are not adjacent because they do not touch. Okay, this is similar to supplementary angles, except supplementary angles, it also does not have to touch. Okay, supplementary angles are going to have a sum of 180 degrees. So again, we're adding. So we add to equal 180. Okay, yes, okay, 130 and 50, okay, add up to 180. In this picture, they're also adjacent and a linear pair, but they don't have to be. If I had a 110-degree angle and a 70-degree angle, okay, those two angles are still supplementary angles even though they are not touching. Okay, and then our last word is vertical angles. This is going to come back to haunt you throughout the entire year. Okay, so vertical angles are two non-adjacent, so they are not touching, angles formed by two intersecting lines. Okay, so whenever you see two intersecting lines, look for vertical angles because they are going to be congruent. Okay, so this shape, which is also going to come back to haunt us, is congruent. And all that means is the same thing as equal. Okay, but when we are using we use congruent most of the time in geometry because we are talking about different measures. Okay, so whenever I think vertical angles, I like to look for an X shape. Okay, and when this is true, our opposite angles, so angle A and angle B, are opposite of each other, so they are congruent or equal. Okay, if I label my other two angles, let's say C and D, they are opposite of each other, not adjacent, so C is congruent to D, or C will be the same amount of degrees as D. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice this vocabulary in this first example, or this first set of directions. Use the figure to the right to determine the best type of angle pair. Okay, so best types, it might include multiple. So we have adjacent angles, linear pair, complementary angles, supplementary angles, or vertical angles. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is trace them. Okay, so if I have AFE, I'm going to find AFE, and I'm going to trace it in that order so I know what I'm talking about. Okay, and then my other one is going to be DFE. Okay, and this just helps me really understand what's going on. Okay, so now I notice these, if I continue it, it forms a line. Well, that's our most specific one, which is a linear pair. But if you remember, in that box of linear pair, we also wrote adjacent and supplementary. Okay, so we need to also include those words for this one. Anytime you write linear pair, you will also put adjacent angles and supplementary angles. Okay. Now I'm going to erase my lines so that I can restart for the second one. Okay. I'm going to do blue for A, F, B, A, F, B, and I'm going to do this coral pink color for D, F, E. Okay, well I notice right away that these have an X shape, so I should be looking for my vertical angles. So to double check, oh no. Okay, double check, I'm going to trace those lines. Oh, that forms a line, and this forms a line, so these are not touching, so they will be vertical angles. Okay. And I can't figure out any of these other ones because I wasn't given numbers for any of them. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and erase so I can try our last one. Okay. I'm going to do CFD. And CFB. Oh, I see a side that's touching. Okay. It does not form a line, so I can't put linear pair. I can put adjacent because they were touching. They shared that ray. I can't put complementary because I don't have numbers. I can't put supplementary because I don't have numbers or linear pair. And they are not vertical angles. So that would be it for that one. Okay, so what I need you to do is go ahead and try to do the same for these 3 problems so that you are completely ready for me to come back tomorrow. Okay, make sure you have all these notes completed before you have time to yourself.